Hey everybody, welcome to SwJ. Today we're picking up where we left off last time, working on a big patch on the back of my jeans, covering up a large hole that opened up. And we're going to be talking about solar panels that don't need the sun. There's many different types of waves out there in the world, and it's awesome that we are finally harnessing some of the non-visible spectrum. Let me explain. So you can make a polymer, which is basically a plastic, out of vegetables. And in this case, this vegetable polymer is made from food waste. And it was found that some of these vegetable polymers would actually produce visible light from UV light. And you know, plants have all sorts of interesting uses for the UV light spectrum that we don't have. You know, a lot of insects find flowers and plants based on them being able to see parts of the light spectrum that we can't see. So the UV light spectrum, if I can clarify that for a second here. If you've seen the movie Predator, or better yet, if you know what infrared vision is, it's basically the beyond red spectrum. And UV light, ultraviolet light, is very interesting because you can't see it, but it can reflect off of things. And oh, how can I say this? UV light isn't like visible light. I'm just hoping that everyone kind of understands the concept of UV light, and I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it. But what these polymer sheets do is they convert UV energy into visible light. And then that visible light is harnessed by solar panels. So basically what you can do is put thin sheets of this polymer into building windows, and they will cause the UV light that they're picking up to change to visible light, and colorful visible light is the interesting part. So you can get skyscrapers with all the colors of the rainbow in their windows, and those rainbow colored windows will be producing power. How much power, you ask? Well, glad you asked. Let's say an average size window in a skyscraper, so decent size window, would produce enough power to run or to charge 2 cell phones. So not an insane amount of power, and if you combine enough of them, then you get an insane amount of power. So you link all the windows in the building to your central power grid, or you just have individual little solar chargers in each room coming off each window, depending on how in depth they want to get and how they want to set it up. I don't know the details on that part. But the really interesting thing about these polymer sheets is they're not just flat. You can actually mold them to any surface. So imagine an electric car with the exterior skin being coated in this polymer. So you would get a car that drives along and glows because the UV light is being converted to visible light, so it would have a glow of whatever color you chose, and it would charge your vehicle as you're driving it. So kind of like the solar panels available today. However, they harness the UV energy. And the neat thing with UV is, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really have to be direct. So even if it's cloudy, you're still getting UV. I'm not sure if just heat would charge things, but I would assume so. It's IR energy, like I say with the Predator reference before. If you're giving off heat energy, you should be able to salvage that heat energy. The other interesting thing is that this polymer can be turned into a thread. So if you can make clothing that glows, that has glowing thread in it, and could have a little like a power out so that you could charge your cell phone off of your clothing while you're walking, or even, well, anytime, it would just sit there and absorb energy, and you could just hook it directly into your phone and charge your phone. So electrical clothing will be a thing in the future. I can see that coming. Future is going to be an interesting place, that's for sure. And this is the thing that I find most interesting, is that we're still discovering stuff like this. Like, there's vegetable parts of a vegetable that convert UV light to visible light, and we can now harness that, change that into a material, and create things with it. You know, if you can turn that polymer into a 3D printer thread, like a 3D printer spool, and then it could be like LED strips. You make something out of it, you plug in an electrical connector into it, and just harness all that power. I don't know if it's going to be that simple, but I think in the future they'll be able to make something like that. Seems plausible. I think that was probably one of the coolest technologies that I've discovered while I've been doing this whole good news SwJ deal. Then I had a discussion with a friend of mine, and he's like, well, why aren't we harnessing all the waves? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, there's so many different wavelengths out there. Cheers. What we see is almost nothing of the total amount of wavelengths that are out there. So if we can have panels, not necessarily solar panels, but just wave capturing panels that could take wavelengths, like all the different wavelengths, and convert them to power, that would be amazing, because we're always surrounded by, like, there's electricity moving through the air constantly, there's power everywhere. Oh, there's a quote from Nikola Tesla that I thought was really amazing, and I don't remember it exactly, but something like this is to the effect of, we're hurtling through space, the Earth is constantly spinning, everywhere there is power, everywhere it just needs to be harnessed. You know, and it's absolutely true, because we're, like, between the Earth's core, the sun, and gravity and the motion of the Earth, there's so much energy out there that's constantly in use, and constantly, you know, things are always in motion. You know, gravity is always there because things are always in motion. So it's pretty insane, the amount of power that's constantly going on. Like when I worked in the electrical industry, I worked up at a dam for a while, and the dam had 10 units, 12 units. Can't remember now. It's been a while. And one of those units, so either a 10th or a 12th of a river flowing through, was 144,000 horsepower. Let me say that again. 144,000 horsepower. And there were 10 units, and that wasn't the entire force of the river. So you harness a river, you're harnessing over 1.5 million horsepower, probably over 2 million horsepower. And 1 horsepower is 746 watts. So if you can harness 2 million horsepower at 746 watts, oh man, somebody help me out. That's a tough math right there for me right now. But 1.5 gigawatts. 1.5 gigawatts. If you can harness a river. It's a big river, don't get me wrong. That's a lot of power. Just thinking of how many rivers there are in the world, and the fact that they're always flowing. You know, sometimes not as much as other years, but they always flow. It's just an incredible amount of power. Well, I think that was one of the, like I say, one of the most interesting technologies that I've found since I started this whole thing, and I think I've one of the worst explanations that I've ever done of it, so look it up. UV solar panels made from waste crops. Pretty amazing technology. Well, pull some pins on this. Well, I thank you very much for joining me. Do really value the time we get to spend together. It's nice to be able to sit back, relax, catch up on some sewing, talk about some positive world news. So, thanks again, and until next time, keep chilling. Don't forget your cookie. Peace.